This morning we're hearing calls to update Guernsey's 50-year-old adoption law. Members of the island's gay community say the law is unfair because only one person in a same-sex or unmarried relationship is allowed to formally adopt a child, with the other person being given something called paternal responsibility. Well, earlier we heard from Guernsey Health Board member Deputy Ellis Bebb on the issue. He has a clear view of what the real problem is.
Well, the law is the same as many of the laws here in Guernsey. It's not updated in order to reflect the values that we hold as a society. It's out of date and it needs reforming. HSSD recognise this and have included it in the 2015 operational plan in order to revise the law. It is outdated. Unfortunately, this is the situation with so many of our laws, and in order to be able to update them and keep them up to date, that requires us to employ more civil servants, something that isn't on the cards at the moment.
That was Guernsey Health Board member Deputy Ellis Bebb talking to us in the last hour of the programme. Well, joining me in the studio now are Ollie and Ben, two people in a same-sex relationship who are trying to become adoptive parents. Thank you for joining us this morning. First of all, you've only recently moved to Guernsey from the UK. Just explain the situation that you find yourselves in.
Well, we've already been through the adoption process in the UK. We were approved in May last year, and through various different reasons we decided to relocate back to the island because I'm local, I was born over here. Ollie's not, obviously, he's coming over on my licence. But one of the reasons that sort of, I think, made us think whether we should or shouldn't come back to the island was because the adoption laws are slightly different here to the UK. So obviously only one of us can adopt, and that leaves the other one of us only with parental rights, which obviously opens up.
So how far had you got through the adoption process in the UK before coming to Guernsey?
We were full adopters, and we were in the matching process, so we had been looking at profiles for children, and we'd sort of become quite, not fully linked to, but close to being linked to a child, and that's what sort of made us evaluate everything kind of in a bigger picture sense and decide to come back and hopefully raise our family here on the island instead of in the UK.
So now you're here in Guernsey, where does that leave the process that you've already begun? Does any of that still count, or do you have to start from scratch?
We've just found out that it does still stand. Having spoken to the adoption team here, who've been brilliant and really, they're very supportive, they just need to find out the information. They've said that they've spoken to the BAAF, which is the British Association of Adopting and Fostering, and our report stands, and it can be, we can either use, the agency that we were approved with in the UK can either locate one of their children with us here, and Guernsey team will support us through that, or they can transfer the report to Guernsey, and Guernsey will help us to find a child in the UK, which means both of us can be legal adopters and then live here. If there was a Guernsey child that they thought was appropriate for us to be linked to, we would have to go through the adoption process here, which means only one of us would adopt and one of us would have parental responsibility.
So it sounds as though your circumstances are particularly complicated in that you've already begun one process in the UK which you could continue to see through, or you could switch to the Guernsey system. I guess that must further complicate the decisions that you have to make.
I think it does, yeah, and I think we've obviously got a lot of decisions to have to make. I think ultimately, at the moment, the options look better as if we sort of stick with the UK one, really, because it makes the process simpler. I think we'd obviously find a child a lot quicker than if we went through the Guernsey process as well, which is a shame, really, because obviously I'm from Guernsey, and it would be nice to sort of adopt a local child and promote their heritage and everything else, really. So,
given that you knew the situation here in Guernsey before moving back, how difficult was it making that decision that the benefits of being in Guernsey outweigh some of the negatives of trying to make this work for you?
I think it was difficult, and we did think about spending a lot. You know, we thought about should we spend an extra couple of years in the UK and things like that, but obviously that there was, you know, external factors swaying that as well. But obviously, I think we wanted to get back to Guernsey sooner, really. I'm local, and I really would like to go through the process here, really. That's where I want to bring up a child, so.
Did it come as a surprise to you when you discovered that the two systems were so out of kilter?
Yeah, I think we thought less. I mean, when we got here, obviously, I think we sort of discovered more, really, of how slightly out of kilter it was, really. I think we thought it would be a lot simpler just to transfer our profile over and get the ball rolling again. I don't think we realised it was quite so complicated or quite so out of date. So.
Deputy Alice Bebb was saying to us in the last hour that the rules governing adoption, they've been identified as being out of date and in need of modernisation. How great a priority do you believe that should be for Guernsey?
Well, I think from my perspective, it's obviously quite a big thing in our world, but I guess it can affect a smaller proportion of the population here. But I think it's about being able to represent internationally that the laws are kind of equality are better here. I think it's important to sort of be able to protect the children that are here and give them the best opportunity to have a forever family and be able to be put into a secure and kind of beneficial environment for them long term.
From a practical point of view, with only one of you being able to officially be an adoptive parent under the Guernsey system, if you went for that, what realistic practical differences would that make?
I think it's protecting kind of the what ifs. It probably makes on a day-to-day thing it's not a massive impact, but obviously with one of us being local and one of us not, if anything happened or went wrong between us, then if I wasn't the adoptive parent, if I only had parental rights, what that would do to my licence may be a question mark, and if I would have to move off the island but my child would remain, all those sorts of things are there as consideration. But also I think it's a feeling as well. It's a sense for that child that they are in a relation, their parents are in a relationship and they are both their parent. There is no sense that one of them is slightly lesser or not as valued.
As we said, from a practical point of view, you are in a really interesting position because you're partway through the process in the UK. You could transfer to the Guernsey system. If you hadn't begun that process and you arrived in Guernsey, do you think it would put you off trying to become adoptive parents?
No, I don't think it would. I think the process is a lot longer here than it is in the UK, but I still think it would be worthwhile. And I still think the adoption team from what experience we've had of them are very good over here as well, aren't they? So I think, it wouldn't put us off, although it's a lot slower than the UK.
Ollie and Ben, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your story with us this morning. If you have experiences of working with Guernsey's adoptive agencies and adoptive services, please do get in touch with us this morning. Always pleased to hear your experiences as well. It's 200 373 on the phone or via our Facebook page, facebook.com/BBC Radio Guernsey. Time now 17 minutes past 8.